So we're going to talk about service-oriented architecture, a popular buzzword that people used to think didn't mean anything. And it almost died because it was so vague that it's caught on and become popular. So what does it mean? It means an architecture where all of the components are designed to be a service. So it wouldn't be the way you'd normally design it. Every single component anybody else can use. That's what service-oriented architecture means. The applications themselves, what's an application? You pick a bunch of these services and put them together into the application. And what this means is if you build your software this way as a service-oriented architecture, it's really easy to use customized services because all the components that you put together to make one, you can make a variation that's more specialized with very little work. Another big advantage of service-oriented architecture, it's so modular and each of these things are independent that if you've made a mistake in the design, it's a lot easier to repair because each of the services are independent. You can replace one with a better design. It's a more flexible design. So those are the two big ideas there in service-oriented architecture. So we need a name for the thing that's not service-oriented architecture. There's not a great name for that. So Armando and I are using the word silo. So a software silo in that it's kind of a monolithic, all the code is interlaced to one to another. It's probably the way you would normally write code. Now, so there's a great story. Armando found this website, and what happened once, it was a blogger at Google, not a Googler at blog. It was a blogger at Google, and he had two blogs. He had the internal blog for the company, where he would rant about maybe the company screwing up, and he had a public blog that he would talk about technology. And he accidentally put his Google rant on the public blog. Armando saw it, got a copy of it, and we put it into the book. And it's gone, right? If you go to his blog, it's not there anymore. Okay, so here's his blog. Now, what he was trying to make a point is that the point he was trying to make was that Amazon, for all its weaknesses, got service-oriented architecture, and Google, for all its strengths, does not. That's the point he was trying to make. So he said, this is what happened so his rant is when he worked at Amazon, this is what happened at Amazon. This was like 5 or 7 years after Amazon was a successful company, so its software was built as a silo. Jeff Bezos wrote, that's kind of a Freudian slip there. Jeff Bezos wrote this email. Now, Jeff Bezos, a very interesting, very smart guy. He got a degree in computer science, a bachelor's degree in computer science from Princeton, but he's the head of Amazon.com. So he sends this email. Here's the first part of the email. And I'm quoting the blogger, so this isn't exactly word for word, but this is the essence of what he said. All teams will henceforth expose their data and functionality through service interfaces. This is from the CEO. This 1. 2, teams must communicate with each other through these interfaces. You're going to make them available, and everybody's going to have to use them. There are no other ways to communicate. No other kind of interprocess. There's no direct linking. You can't do reads of somebody else's data. There's no shared memory. Everything's independent. There's no cheats. You can't say, oh yeah, everybody does that, but you're my friend. You can use it this way. The only way you're going to allow it is via service interfaces, calls over the network. So it's as if every service is running on its own computer and it's got over the network. So this is going to have some performance consequences of it, right? It'll be a lot faster directly. It says, this is what we're going to do. This is point 3 of the email. This is one email that the CEO sends out. So you come into work one day, you start reading this. I don't care which protocol you use. So he tried to stay away from religious wars of which of the various APIs. I don't care which one you use. He actually doesn't care that much, as long as you use something. So you guys decide what you want to use, and different groups use different APIs. I can live with it, but you got to use a service. He didn't use the word service-oriented architecture. He said, we're going to go through these APIs. So service interfaces, without exception, must be designed from the ground up to be externalizable. That is to say, the team must plan a design to be able to expose the interface to developers in the outside world. No exceptions. Well, a CEO sends this out. I don't know. I'm an engineer. I'm smarter than the CEO. I don't know if I want to follow advice or not. So what did the CEO put in the next? What was the next point? Anyone who doesn't do this will be fired. So that probably got the attention of all of the engineers in the company. Let's see, you're going to do this and this and this. If you don't, I'm going to fire you. Okay. And then the last note was, "Have a nice day." Now, the guy who wrote the blog said, actually, those people who worked at Amazon know that there's one of the 7 points that never would have happened. And he said this was the point that actually he wouldn't have said, "Have a nice day." He would just stop, anyone who does this will be fired. But it was funnier to put that one in. Okay, so this was kind of, from Arnulf's and I perspective, kind of the best description of what service-oriented architecture is, right? Everything has to use a service interface. If you don't use it, you're going to be fired. Because if you have kind of a 50-50 silo service-oriented architecture, you don't have it. And the point he was trying to make was, Google doesn't understand service-oriented architecture. They build monolithic software. And there are examples like Google+. The Facebook also had a revolution where Facebook turned themselves into service-oriented architecture. They had, what was it, Facebook?
Facebook Connect.
Facebook Platform. They announced Facebook Platform, which was a service-oriented architecture of Facebook. And suddenly, if you're reading the New York Times, you could find out what your friends on Facebook were reading as well. But Google didn't get it. And so Google+, he was ranting about the only thing that they had 0 kind of services with Google+ when it was first announced. And later, they had a Google+ thing that would allow you to track what other people did. And this blogger referred to that as the stalking feature. But it really didn't have this idea you could break it up in repartition. So to make it more clear what a service-oriented architecture is, here's an example that we've got in the book. Let me use this. So this is a monolithic one, right? There's a bookstore service. These things can do direct reads from each databases, invoke each other. But the user has to go through this single API, the book service. What would a service-oriented architecture look like for that? Now, these 3 things are separate systems. The review service, the user profile service, the buying service, you see that we were able to plug into another service that wasn't actually part of the other one, which is a credit card processing. And this is the bookstore service, and this dotted line is kind of the app. But what we were able to do, because every internal component was this all service, we could create another app that just was a kind of a simple extension of it, favorite book service, that used some of the same services before. And this one actually plugged into another service, which was a social networking service. So you could get a group's favorite books by plugging some of these components with those components. So that's the idea of a service-oriented architecture. It's actually a powerful idea, even though in the early days it looked like everybody had a service-oriented architecture, just had to declare it. And these corporations who started another path were able to reverse course through a forceful CEO. You can imagine, presumably Mark Zuckerberg didn't change your interfaces or I'll fire you, but he's also an influential guy in the company.